All right. Sego, Skananguego, Terry Maresca, Yun Diets. Good morning, relatives. My name is Terry Maresca. I'm a member of the Haga community, which is the Mohawk community near Kahnawake, south of Montreal. And I have been a family doctor at Seattle Indian Health Board since 1997, when the residency in family medicine first started. I was asked to maybe say a few words about the amazing day that we had on the winter solstice just 8 days ago, when the Moderna vaccine came to Seattle Indian Health Board. And I think the lead up for that for me was complicated. I had the experience of actually traveling this summer, which I didn't really want to do, but it was really with an elder from a related community to mine, who needed to move home. And she was going back to our sister reserve in Akwesasne at the Canadian-US border. And that trip took us, because of COVID, the trip, which was by car, took us through a lot of the US. And we chose to go through a number of sites that were Indigenous history sites, just to get away from people, but also just to pay our respects to the work that happened there. And we went to some pretty powerful places, like the Washita battlefield in the Midwest, and places where the Trail of Tears crossings occurred along the Mississippi River, sections of the Tennessee River. We saw areas that I know were important to my family, with a grandmother in the 1750s who was captured near Pittsburgh, where several rivers come together, and traveled hundreds of miles up the Ohio with the family that she ended up living with in Seneca territory. And I say this only because those places really caused me to think, as did the ancient sites of the mound builders. Our people were pretty amazing in terms of their skills, their resilience, their ability to trade. And yet I could still feel the sadness and fear at those sites that we visited, and just really wondered about what they would be thinking now about the situation that we're in, and what decisions would they make, and the decisions that they really did make to help save their communities and to save themselves and their families. And there were some really hard decisions that had to be made throughout all of history. And there we were, sort of like being at those sites. And I thought of that as this vaccine was sort of being developed too, just like what would our community do? Because we've always had tools. This was a little pot from our Haudenosaunee territories up in the northeastern part of the US, and it's a ceramic pot. But this tool, it was important for us for cooking, etc. And when there was contact, we also saw other materials that were being used, right? Like iron. And our people were smart and said, that's useful. We could adopt that. We could trade for that. We see the utility of these things. And so we have always had the ability to make good decisions and choose. I'm reminded of what our elders always say back home, and just one of our main greetings, which is, do you have a good mind? It's like saying hello, but it's deeper than that. Do you carry a good mind? Are you able to work through things in a good way? Take away fear, take away anger. And I really thought about that as this vaccine was being developed, in terms of just some of the bias that I know our communities and other people of color have faced related to vaccines. But I also, I'm old enough now to remember, as I know some of you do at SIHB who have more gray hair on you, and you know who you are, to see some of the diseases that have been changed by vaccination. So the trainees that I work with now, within the residency, most of them don't know what it was like to actually have to work with sick children every single night when we were admitting kids because of meningitis, something called Haemophilus influenza, or Neisseria meningitis. My brother had that in the 60s. And this was an everyday thing that we did, and it was devastating to our children, especially in Indian country. And many of our people were part of those vaccine trials that actually led to the vaccine that we now take for granted, I think, or that our children get when they're young, to prevent them from getting meningitis. There are other examples of this. And so it's been very powerful to see that I've lived to see that in my short time on this planet. The advances that science has done, and this vaccine is a piece of that, with this special mRNA type of vaccine, which cannot get into the heart of our cells, the nucleus, if you will. So that's the true beating heart. It can't get in there. It enters into the cell, yes, but it never enters the heart. So it can't change the essence of who we are. So powerful. And so that day, on that Monday, what was that? That was December 21st, on winter solstice. Our tribal teachings also say that that's the day when was traditionally the beginnings of what we call our midwinter ceremonies. And that's changed a bit in modern times, but the oldest way was that happened on the solstice. And they say that that little soft spot you have when you're a baby, that's the time it actually opens again, even if you're an adult. And when that opens, you're able to make those connections to the spiritual side of life all across the universe. And that it opens on that day. And sure enough, that was the day when we got the call that SIHB was the first site in the state of Washington to get the vaccine. And I remember thinking, wow, that is no accident. That is absolutely no accident that that happened, that the stars literally aligned and that Indigenous people were first. And I remember back in the 2007 when this little report came out about forgotten tribes. Well, guess what? You know, this report was done by many people that are affiliated with SIHB, including Ralph Arcara, our former chief executive officer. Invisible no more, thanks to the advocacy of people within this organization, other partners, government, tribal agencies advocating for the same thing in terms of equity for our communities that have long been forgotten, but not that day. So there it was. That call came, and it was raining like crazy. It was almost 2 inches of rain that day, and there were accidents everywhere. I remember driving on I-90 and thinking, how many challenges our people have faced that if they knew that they could get a medicine that would save their lives, would they do it? And just traffic would be nothing. And so I just think that the ancestors were crying in some ways for joy that this was happening, and maybe still for sadness about what's going on around the world. And I know that to be true too. So it was a sacred day, in my opinion, and I was happy to get that vaccine. And the only thing that I've had from that has been a sore arm. That's a tiny price to pay, especially tiny since at the same time that I got that vaccine, I actually learned that 3 of my family members back in New York, who were all involved in healthcare, were COVID positive. And one of them works in hospitals. She works the COVID wards consistently. That's what she does. We've had enough of this. Just issues of protection for our community, for our families, for the work that we do, I think is so vital. And I think one thing that really separates us as Indigenous people from perhaps from others that have more of a Western view is a view of we know we have responsibilities. Our original teachings teach us that we have relationships and we have responsibilities as opposed to rights. So the prime element isn't your individual right. The prime element is your individual responsibility for where you are at what point in your life that you're at. Whether you're a young parent, whether you're a child, whether you're an elder, everybody's got their responsibilities. And that's what I thought of. It's like if someone's got to be first. What an honor. And at the same time, is there fear? Yeah. I'm in the over 60 club. I have my own share of pre-existing conditions. Just being a doctor doesn't change that at all. And I live with people who are also at very high risk. So I'm thinking, well, somebody's got to do it. So it's gonna need to be us. And I am so grateful to the team at SIHB for making that happen, for everyone associated with this vaccine. I think this vaccine is safe. This vaccine still has, there will be more information coming out about it. There's no question about that. We were starting to hear little pop-ups related to allergic reactions, etc. And I think that that's something that's going to be an ongoing issue, and that we will need to be able to use our good mind, be able to sort of sort through this and to talk to people who we trust, because that's going to be really important. And whether that's a healthcare professional, whether that's people in your family, whether it's faith leaders, whether it's elders, is please use that good mind, because we do have responsibility, not just to us, but to our families, to our communities, to our nations, and really to the world and to the natural world. I've really been thinking about that a lot too as a plant person. This whole COVID thing has really changed our ability to be able to get out in groups and do some of the work that needs to be done to be able to help our Mother Earth, who's trying to sleep right now from all of the things that happened to her. So there's a lot of thoughts, right now, but I'm happy to have had that vaccine. I also hope that you will use your good mind to make good decisions for you and for our community here at SIHB and beyond. And so it's with a lot of humility and gratitude that I got that vaccine, and we've all been encouraging our family to get that done. My mother, who's in her 80s, she's vaccine hesitant. I kind of did it for her. Why would I put myself at risk if I didn't believe in that, or just being willing to be part of that process? So that's known, so that our people will have less fear. And that's really what I was hoping for with that. And just wishing that my relatives and all of your relatives who've been affected by COVID had the opportunity to get that first. So Nyawakoa, we're almost at our new, thank you. We're almost at our new year right now. Again, it's not, not a year. So blessings to each and every one of you. Nyawakoa, thank you for the work that you do. And please make good decisions when it comes to getting the vaccine to protect yourselves, your families, your communities, and to restore our ability to get back to a good life, to our kids in schools, jobs, our work with the environment, our work within healthcare, our ability to see our loved ones, our ability to continue to see and protect our elders. Ona kiwahe. We'll see you again.